South Jersey's home for the Sixers and Flyers.
Yeah! He scored! A two-hand jam!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Monday's edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. How was everyone's weekend? Well, there's a lot of stuff that happened this weekend, a lot of football, and then Ben Simmons making an appearance at Sixers practices in the last 24 hours. And, of course, the Flyers are back in action tonight, so we got a lot to get to here on the show. Of course, you can join the conversation as always. You can text in at 609-403-0973. You can DM the show through priority messaging through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of CLC. And, of course, we're live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Before we get to the Flyers game tonight, at 6:40 tonight, we'll be joined by SiriusXM NHL radio host Scott Laughlin, friend of the show. Join us coming up at 6:40 tonight to get more into. Listen, the Flyers are playing Dave Hackstall, the former head coach. The Kraken come into town. State of the NHL. Only 1 week in, and there's a lot to talk about. I also want to get Scott's insights. You know, he's a guy who covers the NHL nationally, but he's also stationed in Hockey World up there in Canada. So I want to get from him, how does he feel about these broadcasts? You know, ESPN, TNT, is he giving them a good grade? Does he like him? Does he dislike him? Because I know for me, I thought that the broadcast, the game broadcast is good on both. But I got some nitpicking on both when it comes to the non-parts of the broadcast, you know, the pregame and the intermission stuff for both. So we'll get Scott's perspective on that as well coming up tonight on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. But we do want to get you guys updated on the latest news from around, and we'll start with the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles having a couple extra days until they have to get back on the field. And the good news that came out today was that Lane Johnson is going to be back for this team. Okay? That's the real good news. Now, obviously, he came out with his statement about how, you know, him not being there was in part due to depression, anxiety. And it's one of those things where I understand there's a few Neanderthals out there who are going to say stuff like, he's not tough enough, blah, blah, blah. But here's the reality. Unless you're able to walk a day in somebody's shoes, you don't really know what's going on with them. For Lane Johnson, who is, remember, he played through ankle injuries. This is the guy who played through all kinds of things that would probably knock the average person out of play, right? The guy is tough as nails. So whatever's going on with his depression and anxiety, I can tell you this much. It's got to be serious enough because the dude loves football. The dude who's as outspoken and as open to the public as he is, for him to go absolutely silent on social media for multiple weeks and not be able to play, it had to be something serious. So just keep that in mind the next time you want to judge somebody. You know, I think back to what happened in the Olympics, just to give all context to this. You know, Simone Biles said that she couldn't play because she had the twisties. What the twisties are, for those who don't know, is you lose your spatial awareness as a gymnast. So if you as an athlete cannot go out there and perform at your best, I know for me as a football fan, I don't want Lane Johnson on the field if he is going to be compromised. Why would you want Lane Johnson playing if his head isn't in the right place? If he's distracted, if he can't focus? He can get the quarterback hurt. He can get himself hurt. He can get his teammates hurt if his mind isn't in the right place. So, in my opinion, he did the right thing. He said, I'm not in a good headspace. I need to get out of here because you know what? I don't want Hurts getting hurt. I don't want anybody else. I don't want Lane getting hurt again. So, like Simone Biles, if your head isn't in the right place, don't go out there. You can't perform. You can't focus. I don't want you getting hurt or someone else getting hurt. Don't get the quarterback blasted because you're trying to be a tough guy. Lane Johnson has fought through all kinds of injuries to be on the field. So I will never judge him if he says his head wasn't in the right space. He knows his situation better than I do, and he knows the situation better than you do. You all don't know what he goes through. Just remember that next time you judge something. Because how many times have you guys made decisions? Hey, I can't do something. All right, well, you know what? Your head's not in the right space. Now, the Eagles did make a minor move today. They signed Deion Kane to the practice squad. They also activated Suapeta from the reserve COVID list. I only bring this up because Deion Kane played in Indianapolis when Nick Sirianni was there for a couple years. Now, Deion Kane isn't coming in here and changing anything. But it is a sign that guys like Sirianni are still reaching into their past when it comes to familiarity. But the problem is that Deion Kane signing to the team, he may or may not be familiar with Sirianni 100%, which he knows Sirianni better than anybody else did before Sirianni got here because he played with him for under 2 years. But at the end of the day, Sirianni needs to get with the program. You know, Sirianni talks about things like accountability and discipline. And I told you guys on Friday, and I'm just going to keep banging this home until Sirianni gets with the program or something changes. But if any of you out there think that the Eagles are all of a sudden going to turn it around because Lane Johnson is back or because Deion Kane was part of the practice squad, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it doesn't matter. Lane Johnson is one of the best right tackles in the NFL. But he can't make up for it the fact if the head coach can't do his job. He can't compensate for the fact that the coach is asking the quarterback to save his rear because he's not making good play calls. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I don't know what Sirianni is talking to his coaches about. I don't know about the conversation between him and Kevin Matullo and Shane Steichen, although there's a part of me that would love to have a camera on the wall to really find out what's being said. But we don't have that luxury. So for me, I look at this situation where Sirianni, this is all on him. It traded away Zach Ertz, so now you can go to the more of the 11 personnel that you like, 3 receiver, 1 tight end, 1 running back formation. You can theoretically be more West Coast in your game planning. You can go out there and say, I got my right tackle back. I can move my lineup back to left tackle. The offensive line is closer to what it was in week 1 than the last few weeks. But guess what? It doesn't matter if the head coach is still making strange play calls. Nobody can make up for the fact of his obsession with the screen game. Sirianni said himself, a wise man doesn't go to extremes. Well, it seems like Sirianni can't listen to his own wise man advice. And I'm curious to see what changes happen this week. And of course, you can hear all the action of Eagles football right here on 97.3 ESPN, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Merrill Reese, Mike Quick on the call this Sunday. Remember, it's in Vegas, so it's a later start time. So Eagles coverage begins at 3 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN FM. So Eagles in Vegas. Vegas, a huge win. I never expected Vegas to go out there and just take down the Denver defense the way they did. I mean, holy cow. It was almost like the players felt like they were liberated with no Gruden in the house. I mean, was Gruden maybe holding the team back? I have no idea. It's so strange. But now the Eagles got to deal with a Raiders team that's coming flying high off of a huge win in Denver over a rival. Huge win for the Raiders. And now the Eagles, they got to figure things out real quick. Because if the Raiders team that showed up yesterday is there again next Sunday, Nick Sirianni's game plans recently are not going to cut it at all. He is going to get wrecked and embarrassed out there in Las Vegas. course, you could join the conversation through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. DM the show through there, or you could text in 609-403-0973. We're also live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. I can't go through this first set without touching on the Ben Simmons stuff, though, because I know that everyone is sharing the video of Ben Simmons with the phone in his pocket. It's all over the internet, from different angles, depending on which media member you're following. And I got to tell you, there's a part of me that was actually hoping that the phone fell out of Ben Simmons' pocket. So we actually would see what the deal was. But either way, but more seriously, listen, Ben Simmons doesn't want to be there. Okay? And it's very obvious that he's only there because he has to be there. Now, Tom Moore was on with Mike Gill earlier today, and he talked about the fact that, in the post-practice huddle, Ben Simmons wasn't there, that they didn't really get to see Ben Simmons on Sunday. They only saw him on Monday, the part of practice that they got to see. And that Ben Simmons didn't speak to the media today. He might speak tomorrow. But the bigger point is that, is Ben Simmons going to play Wednesday night? When Tom McGinnis is on the call right here on 973 ESPN FM on Wednesday and Friday nights, here in your home for Sixers basketball in South Jersey, is he going to be talking about Ben Simmons on the court? Now, Tom Moore, who covers the team, doesn't think so. And Doc Rivers was non-committal to the question today as well. Frankly, in my opinion, I think Ben Simmons should have to sit out a little while, because if he's not in quote-unquote basketball shape, why do you want him out there? Isn't the whole point of Ben Simmons being here is an opportunity to elevate his value in the trade market? Isn't part of the reason why the Sixers want him on the court is to say, hey, if we're going to trade this guy, we're showing the world his value to trade him. So why would you want a lesser version of Ben Simmons on the court? I know I wouldn't. That'd be bad business practice. To me, if Ben Simmons is not 100% ready to go out there and play, I don't want him out there. If the whole purpose is for Daryl Morey to get the best value in return in a trade, and that's why he hasn't been traded, then I don't want Ben Simmons at 70% out there. I want Ben Simmons at the best version of himself. Now, however long that takes, I have no idea. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know exactly what Ben Simmons' timetable is. I'm not there. I'm not talking to Ben. I've never met Ben Simmons in my life. All right. So I couldn't tell you exactly what's going on in his head. Sometimes I wish I knew what was going on in his head, because some of the things he says don't make any sense. But what I do know is it does no benefit the Ben or the organization for him to be out there Wednesday if he's not ready to go. And if he's not ready, does nobody no good. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. I see a couple messages coming in. So Hal over on the app. Also, we got a couple texts coming in at 609-403-0973. Wherever you're consuming the show, in your car, on the app, watching online, whether you're listening wherever you are, we appreciate you joining the show each night. We get to all your messages on the other side here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL Week 6 finishes tonight, and FanDuel wants you to get the most out of every game. That's why they're giving everyone a $10 risk-free bet each week. All you have to do is make a bet of 3 legs or more in the same game parlay section when you click on Bills and Titans on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. And if you bet with 3 legs or more, and if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. FanDuel is sports betting made simple, and they're always hooking you up with great offers. So lock in your same game parlay bet today on FanDuel Sportsbook and get the $10 back if your bet doesn't win. Also, if you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, you can sign up today with promo code Hennig and also receive a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig. You get your first bet risk-free exclusively with FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 rated sportsbook app. Must be 21 or older to play and present in New Jersey. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available in all states on mobile or web. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Don't forget, still coming up tonight as well. We'll dig deeper into the Flyers. They take on the Kraken tonight. Scott Laughlin joins us at 6:40 p.m. But coming up next on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, we hear from you guys on the other side. I'm Josh Hennig hanging out with you. We get the Flyers hockey tonight on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. This Sunday, it's week 7 of the 2021 season with the Eagles headed to Vegas to face the Raiders.
He lets it fly, and it is intercepted by Nelson. Stephen Nelson picks it off.
Pre-game coverage begins at 3 p.m. Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 4:05. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
With GMF approval. You've probably heard the used cars are currently in great demand, but then some dealers go ahead with ridiculously low offers for your trade. Well, at Bennett Chevy, we don't care what others tell you. This month only, our offers start at a minimum $8,000. Even if your trade's towed to our lot, we'll give you a minimum $8,000 for any old clunker, rattle trap, or rust bucket towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. And if we pay a minimum $8,000 for junk, just imagine how much more Bennett will pay for a nice, clean, good running vehicle. Just grab your title or payment book and get to Bennett Chevy to get the most for your trade. And we'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy one of ours. Need to get out of a lease early? Bennett is your all brands lease return center. No strings, no obligations. Just the best offers you'll find anywhere. And a non-commissioned sales staff paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
This is a message for the people of Cape May County. For over a year, we've been doing the hard work necessary to slow the spread of COVID. Over 60,000 county residents have been vaccinated, but that leaves about 35,000 residents left to get their shots. We've said all along that it's not
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Don't forget still to come, Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM NHL Radio, which is coming up at 6:40 tonight. Also, Mia Culpa coming up in about 10 minutes from now. We'll review the football weekend as well. But first, before we get to any of that, what do you guys think out there about everything that's going on? We got messages coming in over at 609-403-0973 and also on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Hal chimes in from Delaware. Says, Josh, what are your feelings about Derek Carr's performance on Sunday now that Gruden is not the head coach anymore? Remember my comment on Thursday. Listen, Hal, I do remember your comment on Thursday. You were very dead set on the idea that Derek Carr was going to be the reason for their success, if I remember your comment correctly. I don't have your comment in front of me at this second, but I believe that was part of your comment. Listen, I said before last week, and I will always say this, if I don't feel 100% about something, I'm not going to predict or pick somebody to do anything. It's just who I am. I will never assume someone can do something until I actually see them do it. That's me. Okay. If I feel confidently about something, like for example, one of the picks we hit this weekend on my football picks brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's in Atlantic City was I firmly believe the Ravens would cover the 2.5 on the NFL on Sunday. Now, I didn't expect them to blow out the Chargers, but I felt very confident they could hit that. But I also felt confident in the Broncos defense. I didn't think the Raiders would go into Denver and just run all over a Broncos defense that's played very well this year, and I was wrong. So I'm willing to admit that I was wrong, and Derek Carr was a huge part of that. So Hal, yes, Carr showed us on Sunday, in my opinion, that John Gruden was holding him back. Now, there have been speculation for a couple of years that Gruden didn't fully trust Derek Carr. And if you remember, Gruden had a history when he was in Tampa of not trusting young players. He always wanted the veteran quarterbacks, the Bruce Gradkowskis, the Jeff Garcias. He always wanted veteran quarterbacks because he trusted them and their decision-making in his offense more than younger players. Now, it's part of the reason why he was let go in Tampa, because people looked at him and said, look, you can't develop young players. You're constantly bringing in veterans to fill the voids of your inability to coach guys up. And that was part of the reason why it took him so long to get back into the NFL, because Gruden seemed to like the idea of talking to young players more so than coaching young players. So, listen, there may be a reality that you look at a guy like Gruden and say he was holding Derek Carr back. So Hal in Delaware, I think it's a very good point to make. And I think that's part of the reason why you have to be concerned about this Raiders team this Sunday for the Eagles. Because if you're an Eagles fan and you saw the way the Raiders played in Denver yesterday, you could argue that was their best game all year. And if the Raiders look that good on the road, at a division rival, against a team that was top 5 or 10 in almost every defensive category out there, and they went in there and just ran all over them, up and down the field, and their defense showed up and played well, and now that team has to go against an Eagles team that, according to Nick Sirianni, they don't know what their identity is yet. Yikes. Not good. But Hal, thank you for following up on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. You could DM the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, Game Night with Josh Hennig, all that and more through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973. Anonymous texter says the Eagles will be wrecked and embarrassed again. I hope not. And it's not because I'm trying to be, some sort of cheerleader or something. I just don't like seeing bad football. Whether you're an Eagles fan or not, if you're a fan of any team, you don't want to see that team embarrass themselves. You don't like to see bad play on the field. Doesn't matter what level it's at. And when everyone in the world is ripping Nick Sirianni's offense, Seth Joyner, who played in the NFL, Steve Smith, who played in the NFL, Ryan Clark, who played in the NFL, many more, Keyshawn Johnson, who played in the NFL, you have all of these guys who are saying, this is not Jalen Hurts' fault. This is the head coach's fault. I played in the NFL. I know it's the coach's fault. And I see the same thing they do. And if I see it, and the guys who know the game even more than I do see it, and if you see it watching at home or watching at a local establishment or wherever you're at, if we're all seeing the same thing from the Eagles, I don't know what Sirianni thinks he's doing, but he's obviously doing something wrong. To blame Jalen Hurts at this point, and Mike Gill during the break showed me the salacious headline in the Philadelphia Daily News Inquirer. I got to tell you guys, I just can't believe that you're going to blame Jalen Hurts at this point. The guy's started 10 games in the NFL. I can't jive with that. I can't rock with that. All right. At some point, we have to blame who's responsible. And for a young player who does not have autonomy over the offense, I can't blame him. I got to blame the head coach. That's where I stand on this issue. Listen, Tony Romo brought up a very interesting point last night in the game between the Cowboys and the Patriots. And he mentioned the fact that they called a timeout at one point. Now, Mac Jones was so mad that they called a timeout. Romo said, look, he says, as a young player, you get mad when your coaches don't trust you to make the right checks and protections in a game. And Romo said it happened to me. When you're a young player, they don't trust you to make all the decisions. A lot of times, these coaches, he explained on the broadcast, and he's not the only one I've heard talk about this. Coaches don't trust young players. Remember, for the first couple of years of McVay and Goff together, McVay was in Goff's ear the entire time, reading to him how to read the defense. Up until the last few seconds, they cut off the mic between the coach and the headset in Goff's ear. And it was well documented that McVay was telling him what to do. There's a long history of coaches not giving young players autonomy. So I'm not blaming Jalen Hurts for all the problems. Can Hurts play better? Yes. Does his mechanics go sloppy at times? Yes. Does he need to improve his footwork on certain drops? Absolutely. Does Jalen Hurts look anywhere near a finished product right now? No. You have not seen the best of Jalen Hurts yet. Just like when Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and any other quarterback who's been drafted in the NFL first came in the league, they all have flaws. Unless your name is Andrew Luck, over the last 20 years in the NFL, very rarely do quarterbacks come in and they have it all figured out. So I'm not going to sit here and rip apart Jalen Hurts in this situation. I'm going to rip apart the head coach. The head coach should be blamed for a lot of this stuff. Want to get one more message in before we hit the break. Mike from Ocean City chimes in over at 609-403-0973. Says, I just wanted to share my opinion regarding Lane Johnson and the Eagles. Mike from Ocean City says, I commend Lane for his honesty in sharing the struggle. I also commend the coaches and organization as a whole for their support and discretion. It's refreshing to see that no matter how much fans and media harp on the team, there's an abundance of support for things outside of football. Good job by all. It's from Mike in Ocean City. Well, first of all, Mike, I appreciate the fact that you appreciate how the situation was handled, because I think there are some fans out there who are not like you, who this kind of stuff, because for whatever reason in their personal life or in their situations in their own life, they can't accept a reality outside of just go on the field and suck it up. At the end of the day, as I said earlier, Mike, I think that if Lane Johnson is not in a good place, I don't want him on the field because I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want someone else to get hurt. If an athlete has, mental health issues going on, I don't want him on the field to jeopardize himself or his teammates. And I agree with you. You need to commend the Eagles and Lane Johnson for how they handled this. It is refreshing, as you said, Mike in Ocean City, to see how they handled all this. I wish more people would understand what Mike in Ocean City said, but I know that there are some Neanderthals out there who don't understand these things. As I said before, unless you're willing to walk a day in someone's shoes, you're not really in a position to criticize. All right, football weekend review, recap here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, our football picks each week all football season is being brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook is conveniently located right off the boardwalk, featuring 5 betting windows, a large video wall, sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook only at Bally's Atlantic City. The good news is we went 4-2 on Saturday. Bad news is my main bet of the week lost. LSU went into that game with one of the worst defenses in the SEC. And all of a sudden, their defense showed up. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how they did with all the injuries they had. Florida looked like they had no chance. Emory Jones looks like he was completely unprepared for that game. And Richardson is just too young to lead a team to greatness at that point. So Florida lost outright to LSU. And then the next day, they announced that Ed Orgeron is leaving after the year. So the Orgeron LSU saga is going to be done after this year. They got to find a new head coach. Also, we didn't hit on the NC State Boston College game. I went back and watched that game because where I was at on Saturday night did not have that channel. But I'm watching the game and I'm looking at it like, what happened? These are two teams that score a ton of points. How did you not hit the over? They barely did any scoring in the first half. I don't understand it at all. But we did nail some other games. UCLA, they won in Washington. So that was a big, big win for them. Also, we had the under in the Georgia-Kentucky game. So that was also a nice day for us there as well. Also, you look around the NFL yesterday, I was completely wrong about, like I said, the Raiders-Broncos game. We did get the Ravens game right. We also told you guys to take the Rams over the Giants. So we had some winners for you guys this weekend. Hopefully, you guys took advantage of with FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Flyers, Kraken tonight on 97.3 ESPN FM. Talk more hockey coming up next. SiriusXM NHL radio host Scott Laughlin gives a national perspective on the Flyers at the start of the NHL season right here on Game Night with me, Josh Hennig, on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey tonight on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates calling all the play-by-play action.
Ellis to Fairby with a dive. They score!
The Flyers host the Seattle Kraken.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Philadelphia Flyers hockey on the radio home of the Flyers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN, and listen live on the free mobile app.
But we have a truck leaving with a big order on Tuesday.
Tina's floor manager retired, leaving her tortilla factory flat out.
What do you mean she's on a silent retreat?
She must fill the role and all those orders.
I'm gonna oversee production.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Schedule virtual interviews and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. And yes, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Flyers hockey tonight on your radio on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and at 97.3 ESPN.com. Flyers taking on some team from Seattle called the Kraken with some head coach named Dave Hackstall. You might have heard of him. Let's talk more about that as well as the start of the NHL season. It is a friend of the show, Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM NHL Radio, joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. Yourself?
You know, Scott, it's one of those things where, as I told you off the air, a lot of people are intrigued by the Kraken team, in part because Hackstall is coming back to town, but in part also because it's something new and exciting. And, you know, I actually asked a coworker of mine, she's not really like a diehard hockey fan. I was like, if I got you a Kraken hat, would you wear it? And she said yes.
Well, I tell you what, I still have a particular affinity for the Kansas City Scouts and the Colorado Rockies, the NHL team, the Cleveland Barons, the California Golden Seals. These teams were around for a good time, not necessarily a long time. They've got such history in the short time that they were around. They've got some great stories in terms of how the franchises got started back then, what they were able to do and mostly not do, which is kind of why they didn't last and have that staying power. But I tell you what, Seattle's off to a really good start. They've got some solid ownership, and they've got some big bucks, obviously, to gain entry into the league in the first place at $650 million. They've also, I think, Josh, I'm going to go on record right now, I think they've got the best sweaters in the NHL these days. The road whites that the Flyers fan base is going to be witnessing tonight, the road whites look phenomenal. I think right now they've vaulted to the top of the list as far as the NHL sweater power rankings go, as unofficial as they are in my mind.
There you go. So maybe if someone's going to in that area buy a non-Flyers gear, you're recommending the Kraken.
Yeah, I would. Well, you bring up a good point, Josh. Wearing it in Philadelphia is probably not advisable. That being said, I do think that if you're somewhere other than Philadelphia, I think that, you do well to get yourself a Kraken sweater. I'm going to try to get myself some paraphernalia, some merchandise at some point, because they've done phenomenally well, I think, with that color scheme that they've got. And I know their home darks are going to look great when they get back to Climate Pledge Arena to open up that brand spanking new barn. But the road whites, to me, just are exquisite.
You know, before we get specifically to the Flyers, I want to ask you, the NHL season is barely a week old. What are your impressions of the start of the season from the Kraken or anything else on your mind?
Well, I'll tell you what, you always have to make note of teams that get off to really good starts and teams that get off to really poor starts. We talked about it, and the fact is that, Josh, if you lose 3 straight games in the middle of the season, nobody really thinks twice about it. Okay, we'll get them next time. We got a couple of games coming up. We got a road trip, whatever the case may be, coming up. When you lose 3 straight games, like a team like Montreal has done right off the hop, it starts to wear on you. And all of a sudden, the focus, especially for that team, we know what they've lost. We know what they did a couple of months ago to make that remarkable run to the Stanley Cup final before losing out. I think when you lose your first 3 games like Montreal's done and you score 3 goals in the process, man, that microscope gets pretty intense right away. So, again, a 3-game losing streak halfway through the campaign, maybe nobody bats an eye at. But I tell you what, off the hop there, that big 0 in the win column for Montreal kind of stands out. Conversely, you look at some teams that have gotten off to surprisingly good starts. Buffalo, let's not kid ourselves. The Sabres are in for a long, long season. That being said, they've won their first 2 games, so at least they've thrown the fan base a bit of a bone in Western New York, and they're not selling out these days anyway, which is saying something for as passionate a market as Buffalo, New York is when it comes to supporting that hockey club. But even at the very least, in the beginning of the season here, they've given their fans at least a little bit something to cheer about.
Now, here in Philadelphia, obviously, they made some major overhauls. You and I talked about in the offseason, but the fact that there's something to be said with the fact that they brought in a lot of guys with either former C's or A's on their jerseys into this locker room. Well, Game one, they go to overtime, they lose, and people are starting to point the finger at Carter Hart, the goaltender. But Scott, I ask you, who should be on the hot seat right now? The young goaltender or the man behind the bench, Alain Vigneault?
Well, I mean, a lot of this is on Carter Hart. I mean, at some point you got to put the big boy pants on, right, Josh? I mean, what did he give up? 4 goals on 14 shots to start. To his credit, he really shut Vancouver down, I thought, the rest of the way to give the Flyers an opportunity to come back like they did before losing out in extra time. So I think he's got to be better, especially to start the game tonight for Philadelphia here. Again, he's a young goalie. We know what he projects to be in the future. But the time is now. They need him to step forward this season. This is no longer about sharing time or taking a couple weeks off and letting Brian Elliott run with it. That's not going to happen this time around. I mean, this is on him to get this straight. With all due respect to Martin Jones, he's a veteran goaltender that's kind of lost his way the last couple of years. This is all about number 79. He's going to have to somehow regain that confidence. Like I said, maybe the start is with what he finished up with the last half of the game going back to Friday night, Josh, because, again, got off to a tough start, seemed to shut the door the rest of the way to at least allow his team to come back and pick up that point. So maybe that's what he needs. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe tonight gives us further evidence that, Carter Hart is regaining the confidence and starting to go on a bit of a run here to start the season. Or, again, he's still left with the confidence waning, and you start to wonder, well, what's going on here? We can't make the playoffs if this guy's not going to be consistent enough in goal. So, I think the goalie is the guy on the spot. I think the head coach can only do so much. He can't get out there and stop the puck for the team. He can only put guys in a position to succeed. And I think that really the Flyers, whether it's AV or whether it's Chuck Fletcher, they've done a good job. And, of course, rebuilding that blue line, knowing what they lost with Matt Niskanen. You and I have talked a lot about that the last couple of years and the unexpected retirement and how that had a bit of an offshoot and ramification for a guy like Ivan Provorov. You bring Ellis in, that's a real good upgrade. You bring Ristolainen in, and I know he's been banged up here to start with the upper body injury and won't play again tonight. But he's going to help this team as well. Flyers fans have already embraced him with the edge that he plays with. So I think the possibilities are there for this team to be a lot better defensively, and I think ostensibly that's going to help the goaltender for sure.
Yeah, Ristolainen definitely makes a lot of sense in a Flyers jersey with this fan base for sure. Scott Laughlin joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Laughlin SXM. Give him a follow on Twitter, of course, SiriusXM NHL radio morning show host. Scott, when you look at also the Flyers, that first game, a lot of the opinion has been, hey, look, for the first period, they looked really good. But then they started to look like the Flyers of last year, and they kind of find themselves to get into overtime. My wondering is, this is a lot of new pieces they added in here. We mentioned Ellis and Ristolainen, but also as Cam Atkinson. It's also other guys are out with COVID right now. There's a lot of moving parts here. How much of this is saying, hey, Flyer fans, be patient. This is not a finished product?
I think there's some of that, no doubt, Josh, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt here to start. That being said, I mean, they're opening up here with this 4-game homestand. They got 3 more big games coming up there at the Wells Fargo Center. You can't just say, you know what, we'll pick up what we can pick up the whole bit. You're going to go out to Western Canada here pretty soon, and Edmonton looks like they're going to be a beast this time around, and they've got the best player on the planet right now with Connor McDavid, and Draisaitl might be just behind him. So you go to barns like that out west in Western Canada, never an easy trip to begin with. So you can't just say, we'll feel things out here in the first couple of games, and this 4-game homestand to kick off our slate is going to be, more or less a mulligan. You can't really afford mulligans in this day and age, because I look at that division too in the Metro. I think the Flyers right now, to me, are a wild card. I thought going into this season, I thought Pittsburgh was a definite wild card just because Crosby was out for a couple of weeks. Malkin's probably not getting back until after Christmas, they're saying, yet he was back practicing and skating on his own today before the Penguins team took the ice. Maybe there's some good news on Malkin. Perhaps he gets back sooner rather than later, but that's not expected to be the case. You're missing Crosby. You're missing Malkin. Rust has been banged up. Jake Gensel missed the first game. I thought that Pittsburgh was in that wild card status where they were sort of hit and miss to make the playoffs. I looked at Philadelphia in the same way. Surprisingly enough, Pittsburgh's done well, taking 5 out of a possible 6 points to start their season. I think Philadelphia here has got to make some inroads here in the first 4 games of the season. The next 3 games starting tonight against the Seattle Kraken, a team that's an expansion franchise too. And you want to talk about putting pieces together and trying to make it all fit. Well, there's the ultimate trying to make it all fit case study when you talk about the Seattle Kraken with guys coming in from here, there, and everywhere. So tonight's a huge game for the Philadelphia Flyers, and I would suggest that the 2 games after that on the 4-game homestand, too, are very, very integral to this team getting off to a real good start, especially when you've got to go out to Western Canada after that.
Scott, before I let you go, one of the conversation pieces we had before the season with hockey was a whole new brand of television. No NBC Sports anymore. It's ESPN with their crew. It's TNT with their crew. Has that been a conversation point nationally about the 2 networks kind of becoming the new faces in many ways of hockey?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Josh, that everybody's excited about it. I think they're excited about ESPN getting back with the NHL after, 17 years apart. I think as far as Turner goes as well, it's a bit of a work in progress as they jump into the deep end of the pool with hockey for the very first time as well. But each network has brought in some huge names, and I think that'll put eyeballs on the screens, if nothing else. I think that ESPN has openly admitted that they're trying a couple of different things here or there to see how they work in the early going. And look, this is going to be a long-term project for ESPN back with the NHL, and the same could be said for Turner as well. You're going to try things in the early going. You'll find out what works and what doesn't work. As far as the on-air personalities are concerned, we know about our good friend Linda Cohn, and she's been a hockey fan forever. She was behind or at least between the benches, going back to Anaheim on Friday night for that Minnesota-Anaheim contest. And, John Butchergross and Steve Levy and Barry Melrose and all these people have been so steadfast in their support for the National Hockey League over the years. So for them, this is music to their ears to have the NHL come back. And, I think Turner obviously adding the great one to their coverage, if nothing else, is going to put eyeballs on the screens too, because when Gretzky talks, people are going to want to listen. So I think the possibilities are endless right now. The possibilities really are exciting for these 2 networks, ESPN and Turner, to jump right into it. I think they're off to a solid start, and I think that things can only get better the more experience they get with things, again, that they've tried out, that work or don't work, and then you go from there.
He is Scott Laughlin. Catch him on SiriusXM NHL Radio tomorrow morning. Also at Laughlin SXM on Twitter. And he joined us right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Scott, always appreciate the conversation. Enjoy the hockey.
All right. You too, Josh. Thank you.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Leading you in the Flyers hockey coming up at the top of the hour. Of course, Flyers take on the Kraken. The return of Dave Haxtell here to Philadelphia right here on 97.3 ESPN. And of course, our show today has been brought to you by Bally's Casino in Atlantic City, the FanDuel Sportsbook, the all-new retail sportsbook conveniently located right off the boardwalk, featuring 5 betting windows, a large video wall, a sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. Get your game face on. Score big this weekend when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook only at Bally's in Atlantic City. Thanks again to Scott Laughlin for joining us from SiriusXM NHL Radio. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates on the call, coming up next right here on your home for Flyers hockey, Sixers basketball, and the Philadelphia Eagles right here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget you listen to Flyers as well on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. I'll be back on the air tomorrow at 6 p.m. following Mike Gill on the Sports Bash right here on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody.